Hello, my name's Heather. I'm a 32-year-old woman. I've been married to my husband for 7 years before I recently divorced him. My husband, Xavier, and I met at this social event that was happening in our city. We ended up interacting as part of one of the many activities of the event and found out that we were compatible. We kept talking after the event, we texted a lot, and I quickly began falling in love with him. We began dating shortly after that. We dated for a good 3 years before deciding to tie the knot. Our wedding was and still is one of the happiest days of my life. If I had to describe our relationship, I would say that it was full of trust and love. There was nothing about Xavier that ever made me question it. I say that only because I had just come out of a bad relationship before I met Xavier. To have him around was amazing. He always had a way of making me feel good after a bad day. I sincerely thought we were going to last forever. We were very big on communication, and whenever we did have an argument, which happened very rarely, we would talk it out almost immediately after. Aside from our relationship, even our individual lives were going great. We were both working jobs that paid us really well. We were able to buy our dream house, and in general, we lived very comfortably. I had the perfect life, and I was super grateful that I got to live it. And then came the sudden and confusing events that changed my life when I figured them out. The first things that started disappearing around me were small things like maybe a sandwich that I had prepared for lunch or one of my handbags. The handbag was not a big deal because it wasn't one that I used frequently or one that had any sentimental value attached to it. I remember distinctly asking Xavier if he had any idea about where my things were going, and he would always get skittish and defensive. I remember thinking it was weird, but I let it go because the things that went missing were always replaceable and not of much value to me. Then came the more expensive small things that disappeared. It started off with these gorgeous pair of earrings that were from Majuri. I had bought them for myself after I got paid for the first time. Those earrings had cost about half my salary at that time, and now, while their value may have gone down, they were still pretty pricey. I went almost insane trying to find those pair of earrings. I knew they were missing because I had planned to wear them to a friend's party, and suddenly they weren't there. I turned Xavier and I's bedroom upside down trying to find it. I was a mess by the end of it. Xavier had walked into the room and gasped. "What happened here?" "I'm sorry, but—" "Oh my God, babe, are you okay?" There were these really pretty pair of earrings that I had bought for myself a long time ago that I can't seem to find. "Is it not in your jewelry box?" If it was, would I have turned this room into the aftermath of a tornado? "Okay. Sorry, I'm just really sad and upset with myself for not being more careful about them." "Look, why don't we get going to the party right now, but when we get back we'll search for them again. Put on another pair of earrings for now." "I don't think we'll find them. I've looked everywhere." "Maybe they're somewhere else. We'll look for it all over the house, even in the places that don't make sense." "Yeah, okay. I don't have any hope, but it wouldn't hurt to try." "That's my girl. Now let's clean this up a little and get going." The thought of even asking Xavier if he had seen my pair of earrings had never crossed my mind at that time, because I just didn't see why he would have seen it or taken it anywhere. We searched for those pairs of earrings for the next 3 days. We turned the whole house upside down and we found nothing. I cried and cried that I had lost them. It felt like I had lost an important signifier of my accomplishments. Xavier held me and comforted me. Eventually, I managed to get over the feeling of loss that I had. I kept a watchful eye over my things after the incident, though. I couldn't risk losing any more important things. However, I still began to lose my things, especially my expensive jewelry. I felt like I was genuinely going insane because how could my own jewelry go missing in my own house when no one ever came over? The more I thought about how my things were going missing, the more one doubt began to grow. What if Xavier was stealing from me? But I couldn't think of even one reason for him to do such a thing. I kept thinking about his behavior since my things started going missing too. He was evasive at first, but then he turned to comforting me. But as more and more things began disappearing, the more distant he got. He'd see me panicking or even upset about my missing stuff, and he would just ignore me. I tried my best to ignore my growing suspicions, but I just couldn't. So one day, while he had gone out of the house to run some errands, I decided to go through his stuff. I went through his wallet, his clothes, and even his laptop, but I found nothing. I felt a little relief, but the nagging feeling that Xavier was involved still didn't go. I was relieved that I didn't find anything, because I didn't know how I would have reacted if I did find something. But not finding something did not mean that Xavier could not have taken my things. I decided to just let things be for a little while. I kept all my expensive things in the locked drawer, and I kept the keys with me at all times. There was going to be no way for my things to go missing. I hadn't checked on my things in a long while, so one day I decided to check on them again, and that was when I noticed the necklace that my mother had gifted me on Xavier and I's wedding was missing. I was livid at that point. There was no one at home to take any of the things in the drawer. Hell, there was only one person who knew where my things were. I knew my plan wasn't foolproof, considering my keys wouldn't have been on me when I took a shower or even when I was asleep. To think that Xavier would actually go through my things like that and do God knows what made me really angry. Xavier had been at work when I found the necklace missing. A part of me knew that even if I confronted him, he would have denied it, so I decided to make a purchase while Xavier was away. I bought a security camera to put into our room. It was one of those hidden cameras that hid in plain sight because they look like an everyday object. With a backup plan in place, I decided to confront Xavier when he came back home. I need to ask you about something. Oh, what's wrong? So, you know how I've stowed away all my jewelry in the locked drawer? Yeah? Well, the necklace my mom gave me at our wedding is missing. Did you misplace it? I know I did not, because I haven't opened the drawer in a long time. All right. So I wanted to ask you if you know where my jewelry is disappearing. Are you accusing me of stealing your stupid jewelry? I didn't accuse you of anything. I was just asking. No. You know what? I've been nothing but supportive of you. I've comforted you when you cried over that junk, and this is how you repay me? Xavier, no. What use would I have for your ugly jewelry? First of all, calm the hell down. Secondly, stop insulting my jewelry. Lastly, I wasn't accusing you of anything. I just wanted to know if you knew anything about it. You're the only one who knows where my jewelry is, and you know where my keys are. All I'm hearing is that you're accusing me of stealing your stuff. I can't do this tonight. I'm going to a friend's house. With that, Xavier left the house. I was baffled. I mean, did I want to directly ask him if he was taking my things? Yeah, but I knew that directly asking him about it would not have ended well. Turned out that asking him indirectly didn't work either. Xavier's over-the-top reaction did send alarm bells ringing in my head. If he was truly innocent, then he wouldn't have reacted so intensely. He would have heard me out and tried to figure things out. The more I thought about his behavior, the more suspicious I got of him. I knew I needed to snoop around a little more, but first I had to keep up pretenses. I couldn't have Xavier get suspicious of me for not trying to get him to come back home. So I texted him a bunch and called him a bunch, all of which did not get any responses. I knew he saw the messages, but he never replied. I knew I had done enough and that he wasn't coming back home that night. That gave me ample time to snoop around. The first thing I did was go through his laptop. I looked through his search history and found nothing, although all of the searches were fairly recent ones, and nothing from the past month and before was there. He had cleared his search history. That made my suspicions only worse. Then I decided to go through his bank statements. Thankfully, he had everything logged in and saved on his laptop. When I checked how much money he had in his account, I was shocked to see only $20. Where could he have spent all his money? He had only just gotten paid a week ago. I felt my stomach drop when I went through his bank statements. I saw that he had made a huge transaction to some account. I tried to look into who the account belonged to, but I couldn't get very far with that. I felt sick and confused. I didn't know what was going on. What could Xavier possibly need so much money for? And who would he have sent it to? I decided to get my hands a little dirtier, and I called his mother, Polly, to find out. Heather, dear? Hello, how's it going? Hi, Polly. I need to ask you about something. Are you free to talk? Of course, honey. Tell me, what is it? I need you to keep whatever I ask between us only. You can't tell anyone a thing, including Xavier. All right, I won't. Although you're scaring me a little. I'm sorry, it's nothing scary. I'm just really confused and worried about Xavier. About Xavier? Why? So a lot of things have begun to go missing. We haven't had any guests over in months, and it's always been only Xavier and I at home. I know I could have misplaced them. That's why I placed them all in a locked drawer that I never opened. However, when I went to check on my things, the necklace my mother gifted me at our wedding was missing. So you think Xavier is doing something with your things? I don't know. I looked into his bank statements and he has essentially nothing in it. What? Yeah, and he only got paid a week ago. You know what? Now that you mention it, he has been asking me for some money these past few days. What? Why would he ask you for money? He told me that you guys were struggling, so I helped him out. I did find it odd that you never seemed to thank me. I'm only saying that because you thank me for even the littlest thing that I do for you, but I just let it go. Oh, Polly, we haven't been struggling at all. What is Xavier up to? I have no idea. I'm worried about him. See if you can find out any more information and keep me updated. I'll support you no matter what. Yes, I will. Thanks a lot, Polly. I couldn't believe what I had found out. Why was Xavier taking money from his mother and stealing my things? I knew that there was only one way to find out, and that was to catch him in the act. If I had the evidence, he would have no choice but to confess. I had to wait another 2 days until the camera arrived. So until then, I decided to hide the key in my drawer. The next thing I did was to withdraw some money and keep it in the drawer. I needed to see if he was willing to take money over the jewelry as well. I also decided to be a lot more alert with his things because Xavier wasn't smart enough to actually hide everything from me. I knew that he would slip up somewhere. Xavier did end up coming back home the next night after work. We didn't speak much, but I wasn't exactly worried about that at that moment. I needed to figure out what he had needed so much money for. And him not talking to me was the last thing I could have been worried about. The camera arrived on time, and I set it up the same night it arrived after Xavier had gone to sleep. I connected it to my phone so I could access a live feed at any point. I also made sure to keep it recording at all times because I would have needed proof if I did catch something. I only had to wait another day before I got all my proof. The next day, while I was at work, I got a notification of movement in the room. I watched the live footage and watched Xavier enter the room. He was supposed to be at work, and he only got an hour-long break. We lived 45 minutes away from his workplace, so there was no way he could go back in time, not to mention it wasn't even his lunchtime. I watched him curiously as he began to look around the room for something. Finally, he located my hiding place for the keys. He took it and quickly opened the drawer. I watched as his face shifted from confusion to awe as he saw the stack of money in the drawer. He looked around as if expecting me to show up all of a sudden before grabbing the cash and the most expensive Cartier bracelet from my drawer. Of course, I was panicking, but at the same time I was furious. So he had been the one that was doing it. I was disgusted by how he had been so quick to comfort me when he had been the reason I was crying to begin with. I knew at that moment that I didn't want to be with him any longer, and that I was going to get back at him for what he took from me and put me through. The first thing I did was to send Polly the video. It took less than 15 minutes for her to call me. Oh my God, what is he doing? I would also love to know. I'm so frustrated and furious at what I watched. You need to figure out what he's doing with the money and jewelry. At the same time, you need to get the police involved so you can at least get compensated for it. Are you sure you're okay with me calling the cops on him? Of course! He's my son, but he's also doing something wrong. He needs to be held accountable for what he's doing. If that means getting arrested, then so be it. All right, I'll get the cops involved, but before that, I'll go back home and I'll see what more I can find out about it. I really am sorry that Xavier has been stealing from you, though. You have nothing to apologize for. You're right. Xavier is an adult who's responsible for his own actions. You have no reason to apologize for him. I was honestly amazed by how Polly was the one who suggested getting the police involved. It must have taken a lot of courage for her to do that. I clocked out of work way earlier than I usually do and headed back home. When I got there, I decided to go through everything that was Xavier's. At first, I didn't find anything. That made me really frustrated because I knew that Xavier wasn't that smart to cover all his tracks. I know I'm being mean, but seriously. The man was stealing from me even after I had already discovered that my stuff was going missing. As a last resort, I decided to go through our laundry. I picked apart my clothes from him and began going through his. Finally, I managed to find a piece of paper in one of his pants pockets. It was a receipt from a store for one of my necklaces. I did a bit of research and found out that this shop was a pawn shop, so he had been selling my jewelry there. But why? I knew I needed to find my answers immediately. I went down to the police station and told the police about my issue. They suggested that I get a lawyer and deal with this situation with the help of legal aid. So I did just that. I told Polly about what the police had said, and she told me she had a friend who was a lawyer. She connected the both of us, and I told the lawyer, Bella, about my predicament. She suggested that I file for a divorce and confront him about it as well. She asked to be present during the confrontation. I decided to get the divorce papers first, so that meant waiting for a little while longer. I was okay with that. More time only meant more proof. The time I spent waiting for the divorce papers to get into my hands, I kept a watchful eye on my things. Thankfully, Xavier hadn't stolen anything from me. Until he did on the same day that I got the divorce papers in my hands. I called up my lawyer, Bella, and we headed to my place after work. Xavier wasn't at home. When Xavier did get home, he looked confused. He asked me who was with me, but before I could answer, Bella spoke up for me. I'm Heather's lawyer. Lawyer? Why does she need a lawyer? Because we have proof that you've been stealing from her? Stealing? Heather, is this about your stupid jewelry? Yes, it is about her jewelry and money that has been stolen. Are you seriously blaming me for this? What would I get out of stealing from you? That's what we want to know as well. I didn't do anything. Well, here is a receipt of the necklace that belonged to Heather being sold to the local pawn shop. It was found in your pants pocket. Seriously? This proves nothing. How do you know it's her necklace? All the receipt contains is a description of the necklace, and I hate to break it to you, but a lot of necklaces are gold and long. All right, here is video proof of you stealing from Heather. This? Heather, you recorded me? You will communicate to her through me from now on. Here are the divorce papers. We expect you to pay full compensation, or we will go to court about it. I can't do that. Why is that? I spent all the money. On what, exactly? I've been gambling. A friend of mine introduced it to me one day, and I guess it kind of spiraled. I see. So you stole from your wife to enable your addiction. I'm sorry, Heather. We'll see you in court, Xavier. It shocked me to hear about Xavier's gambling problem. I couldn't believe that he had indulged in it, knowing just how risky it was. Not to mention he stole from me, and even comforted me when I was upset about my things going missing. I was also really angry at him for putting me in a position like that to begin with. If I hadn't caught him, he would have only stolen more and even put me in hot water financially. Xavier texted me several times after that, apologizing for his mistakes. He begged me not to leave him, but I saw no point in being with someone who was so comfortable with stealing and lying to me. As per Bella's advice, I didn't respond to any of his texts. I just let Bella take control of everything that happened next. What happened next was nothing short of amazing. When presented in court, Xavier didn't deny anything. He tried to defend himself, but the judge was not sympathetic to him at all. She told him that he was lucky that all we were asking for was compensation in terms of more portion of joint assets instead of charging him with theft. We show the evidence of his admission via his texts. Since he stole so much from me, I was granted 80% of our joint assets and finances. Xavier looked like crap, but that was to be expected considering he had lost everything. It wasn't until much later that Polly told me about how bad Xavier's actual financial condition was. Turns out he had taken out several credit cards in his name to fund his gambling addiction. When he wasn't allowed to draw out more money or even get another credit card, that's when he resorted to stealing from me. He's gone back to living with Polly. She's giving him some time to get back on track before she'll ask him to start paying her rent. I do feel bad for him, but I can't ignore how he made me feel. I feel satisfied that I was able to find out and stop him before he hurt me even more financially. My life has been going on a steady upward steep. I will always miss the relationship with Xavier, but I know that I deserve so much better than that.